another Bears podcast video for you. Today we will be discussing the matchup with the Bears on Sunday as the Bears take on the San Francisco 49ers in San Francisco. And then, we're going to do actually a quick little preview. I know obviously a lot of you guys are probably like, this is way too early for this, but we're going to kind of do a quick little dive into the 2025 NFL draft for the Bears because since, obviously they're out of playoff contention now, we can kind of start looking to the draft and see what players the Bears can potentially pick up and what spot they could potentially sit at. So let's get right to it, man. My name's Tyler. I'm Jordan alongside
Daniel. How's it going, everyone? It's good to be back. I mean, hey, 2 weeks in a row. Last week was a lot of fun, so we're glad to come back with a game preview and not just talk about the games that we had beforehand. So it's good to be back. Good to be back in the crunch time.
Obviously, the last time we saw you guys was like a day after Thanksgiving, and we talked about, Thanksgiving foods and stuff like that, kind of talk about that Bears loss for Thanksgiving, Matt Eberflus getting fired for Bears head coach. But today, that was a little bit of a longer podcast. I think that was a little over an hour. So we kind of broke it up. We're going to do the preview for the Niners today. It's going to be a little bit shorter, probably about 30 minutes or something like that. But we're going to get right into it with, talking about like what's to expect with the Bears, Niners injuries, Bears injuries, what's to expect with them with the new head coach, Thomas Brown under center. It's going to be, exciting game. I'm still not checked out on the Bears. A lot of people are like, I'm done on the Bears. I just, don't want to watch any more bit, but who's a true fan if you're not going to stick with your team? Through the
exactly.
There's Patriots fans that are still sticking to their team through 3 wins right now, and stuff like that. And Jets fans right now are still sticking through their team. It's just if you're a loyal fan, you'll stick to your team till the end.
Exactly.
And
you got to stay loyal. And like every week is a new opportunity. And after what I've been seeing these last few weeks, it seems like each week our team's getting better and better at certain aspects, defensively, offensively. So at this point, we're just here to watch Caleb. We're here to watch Caleb throw the rock. And whoever's coaching, no matter what, is going to look a little bit different next year, even if Thomas Brown does end up returning. But let's go ahead and debut. Talk about Thomas Brown's debut this week going against San Francisco. And this could actually be a pretty interesting game. I don't think San Francisco has had that much of an evolved offense these last few weeks, or defensive is they haven't been as strong. So I do think the Bears stand a pretty good chance playing the away game here. We're just going to go through a couple facts here because we usually don't dive this deep into most of these games for the preview, but since we have a little bit extra time today, we're going to go ahead and do that. So Sunday, December 8th, this Sunday at 3:25 p.m. Central, the Bears are taking on the San Francisco 49ers away in Levi Stadium. The Bears currently sit at 4-8, and the 49ers sit at 5-7, 1 game above us. San Francisco does lead the all-time series 35-31-1. There is one tie there historically. Chicago is plus 175. San Fran is minus 210.
It's a close matchup, man.
Yeah. Closer matchup. People are definitely choosing.
Purdy's been playing a little bit rocky the last few weeks, coming back from that injury and stuff like that. That his shoulder is not right now. Clearly, we've been seeing the last 2 weeks he's been looking like the pick he kind of sat at. He was the last pick in the draft, Mr. Irrelevant, and they already talked about with Brock Purdy, going into this, that he is the quarterback for the future for the Niners. That was kind of a thing like, oh yeah, they lost the last 2 games. Will he be that quarterback for the future? And they doubled down and said Brock Purdy is going to be the quarterback of the future for him. So it's gonna be a close matchup, man. We'll get into injuries and stuff on why if certain key players were in this game, I guarantee you, obviously the Niners would be, more heavily favored, maybe minus 300
Definitely.
or something like that, minus 200. But there's some key injuries out there, man. Key injuries.
Oh, yeah. Some really good primetime starters that they're missing. And we'll get into that. I mean, sooner or later, we'll talk about Brock Purdy and the contract situation that he's going to have to go through next year. So San Francisco does sit with a lot of questions. I'd say, if anything, more questions than the Bears are. But ESPN ranked the 49ers with a 61.5% win chance.
Close matchup, man. Yeah,
a close matchup. So this is definitely how it's gone in the past few games. I mean, definitely every other team has been favored against us, but we've put up a pretty good fight. And the Bears have won 3 of the last 5 versus the 49ers. The last meeting being the epic 2022 home opener in the rain, if you remember. Yeah. So that is the last time, and that was Trey Lance's debut as well. So
that's right.
Pretty important game coming up for the Bears here. This could be a situation to get us to 5-8, which isn't that much different, but that will affect a couple of the draft positions that we're going to talk about later in the show here. So as you can see, the most important thing to detail here for the 49ers is probably going to be their injuries. Injuries for them have been pretty tough. The Bears have had their fair share, but nothing like what the Niners have gone through. Their biggest players, so here are the 4 of their biggest stars. McCaffrey, boom, on IR. Ayuk, ACL tear. out for the season. Kevin Givens, torn pec, out for the season. And Dre Greenlaw, who tore his Achilles in the Super Bowl of last season, also out. And he is pretty much week to week at this point. But he's been a huge loss for them this year defensively because, as you know, like he's someone that I would love in a Bears uniform. He plays with heart and intensity. So, but yeah, I mean, some of the key injuries going on to this week, Christian McCaffrey, running back Jordan Mason were both put on IR, meaning that they're out for the next 4 weeks.
Talk about this, man. You got to feel bad for McCaffrey. You really do.
Yeah, dude.
He looked awesome in that game against Buffalo.
He did.
Every time he touched the ball, he was, obviously a little bit different circumstances, a little bit snowy and stuff like that. But every time he touched the ball, he was just looking like old McCaffrey self. And then I saw a play where, it was a shoelace tackle. He smacked his knee on the ground. I was like, oh, that looked a little off for him. You know what I mean?
Painful, yeah.
And then the next snap, he grabbed the ball and immediately went down to the turf and was like, nope, or I'm not, can't do it. So clearly something was wrong and went to the locker room and he was immediately ruled out of the game like really quick after that. So you got to feel bad for him, man. Obviously I was going to say you got to feel bad for the, fantasy players that drafted McCaffrey at number 1 overall because he was a, great, he's a great running back, man. You clearly saw like the difference between him and Jordan Mason, Jordan Mason is a great running back too, but Christian McCaffrey's Christian McCaffrey. There's a reason why they traded for him and it's got to feel bad for that guy. He's just been, the last 4 years, he's not, he's just trying to play, man.
Yeah. It feels like the Madden curse, right? I mean, he is technically the best player in the NFL. I mean, when you look at it from a skill position, I mean, you talk about the Patrick Mahomes and stuff. He does the running back position extremely well. Defenses can't game plan against Christian McCaffrey. Like he gets the ball.
What's the cover of Madden 25? Was it McCaffrey?
Christian McCaffrey.
It is McCaffrey. I just looked it up.
So the Madden curse is real. And he was on both covers, actually. He was the only first time in a few years that he was both covers on the deluxe and the regular. So, again, feel for the player. I mean, in terms of fantasy, like we all understand that's the way it goes, but it still sucks. And I know that his position is going to be just as high next season as it was this year.
I just looked up. Josh Allen was Madden 24, and he did not get hurt. He did not. So, finally, they escaped 1 year. But every time you hear, "Oh, that player's on Madden," it's like, don't draft him in fantasy or whatever. But
ridiculous situation that the Niners are going through.
Obviously, other key, injuries too. Brandon Ayuk, about 4 weeks ago or whatever, tore his ACL out for the season. And it's crazy that I just saw this stat on Twitter with like the Niners receivers right now. Ricky Pearsall, the guy who they drafted in the draft this year, hasn't gotten any like target shares like at all the last 3 weeks. He's on the field, not even getting thrown the ball. I know like I think it was the first or second week when he came back from that injury because I think he got shot in a robbery or something like that. And he was out for, I think the first 4 weeks or 5 weeks or something like that.
Yeah. Something like that.
He didn't really get any touches when he came back that first game, but that second game, he looked pretty good. And a lot, I know I kind of roping back into fantasy, but a lot of people, picked up Ricky Pearsall thinking he would be one of the main targets for Purdy, but it's looking like it's Juwan Jennings. George Kittle's looking like that high top target.
Exactly. And Ricky, he did have one long touchdown, and I think his first career catch was like a 40-yard touchdown. I only know that because I was playing against him. But as I said, like this team is going through a lot right now, and like you said with the wide receiver room, like there just isn't a lot of bodies there. And Juwan Jennings, someone that we did not expect to be wide receiver 1 in an offense with Debo and Ayuk, is a wide receiver 1. I mean. And he's been quite healthy.
He's not a bad player, man. But he's no Ayuk. He's no, now talking about another player I have on one of my fantasy teams, Deebo Samuel. He has not looked right in the last 4 weeks. He looks like he is checked out for the season. I was watching that game against Buffalo. He's running routes half speed, maybe because of the snow or whatever. But he just looks like he's like,
doesn't look the same.
I'm done. I'm done with the season, man. So
who knows if he gets that extension too? Because it's like I said, a big year for the 49ers, and it's not just them focusing on this game. It's them focusing for what the next year is going to look like. And our year definitely looks a little bit more promising than what their situation looks like currently. But they have a couple other players out. Hufanga, the safety, which came out in the early part of the season as definitely one of the better strong safeties in the league here. He is also on IR. Trent Williams is questionable. He's had a pretty rough week. I know he ended up losing his child also.
Season too, man. Oh yeah, that's right. Yep.
So he's questionable also for this game. We don't know what kind of mentality he has going into this game, but we do hope the best for him because he is definitely one of the more premier offensive tackles in the NFL here.
It was like the main key signing for the Niners is re-signing Trent Williams, and didn't he sat out of training camp if I recall correctly?
So. Yeah, I think you're right.
He was one of the holdouts too. But see in the chat right here, Peter C says, "Let's freaking go." Appreciate it, man. Yeah, we'll be
welcome back, Peter. By the way.
Hope you're having a great Wednesday, man. We're previewing, the Niners game, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the draft, kind of like what I was texting you yesterday about everything. But so sorry to cut you off, man. But so basically, Trent Williams, a big injury. Another cornerback, Lenore, is going to be out, but he's questionable. I'm not sure if he's going to be playing. We'll see what happens. Flanagan Fowles, the linebacker, is going to be out. Or questionable, I meant, sorry, not out. He's questionable. But some big key injuries for the Niners. Trent Williams is a big injury. Christian McCaffrey, Ike's been out for a while. It's they haven't looked like themselves. They really haven't.
And this is, and unfortunately for them, this is a good thing for the Bears, right? Because that means that their offense is going to be a couple steps back. They're on their third string running back right now, who he's probably had under 50 snaps in the season, so he definitely isn't. I wouldn't say prepared to go up against this number one Bears rush defense and red zone defense. We'll see exactly how that goes. But like I said, this is a Bears team that can definitely persevere and try to get a win here against a pretty dominating team of these last few seasons. And like I said, they are winning the all-time record against us, and it would be nice to kind of change that pace and see if we can get a winning record against them. But what do you think about these Bears injuries here? So there's a few new names on the list here, but I also think most of these individuals will end up playing from what I've heard here. ESPN does a really good job with estimated return dates and when they think players are going to try to return. It seems like all four of the people who are questionable, we'll go to the list here. Elijah Hicks, safety, questionable. Ryan Bates, center. Darnell Wright, offensive tackle, questionable. And then Roschon Johnson with his concussion that he suffered early in the last game.
He's going to be out. It looks like he's still suffering that concussion, symptoms from that concussion and stuff like that. But all the other players I could see potentially playing for the Bears. Elijah Hicks, Tevin Jenkins, stuff like Darnell Wright. Jaquan Brisker probably is not going to be coming back at all this season. It's been a rough go for him, man. He had a great game against the Titans, and before that, and then he just had that rough tackle.
He did say that he had a tweet this week saying that he's on the field. So I have a feeling
that's right.
Once he gets back from IR, I do feel here the estimated return date is December 16th. So they said next week would be his return date. I don't know if I believe that altogether, but I do think he will end up coming back this season. It's not like he's in a worrying pace. If he feels good with his head injury, then I think he does come back just to kind of, get in some few snaps at the end of the year. Again, new coach and everything, new system. So he's going to try to kind of prove his fair share of his position. I do think he ends up coming back, but we'll see. It all depends. Head injury is pretty crazy. I was mentioning, like, if it's a leg injury, then I totally would understand because he needs to heal up a little bit. If he feels ready from his concussion, he's past the protocol, I think he's going to want to play. So again, ESPN has his next week. I don't know if I believe next week. I would probably take the week after that. But I do expect him to play at some point. So those are the Bears' injuries. Some key players. I would love to see Elijah Hicks out there. Offensive line's pretty healthy. If Darnell Wright can kind of go back off the questionable and play this week. So we're doing pretty well. We're doing pretty well there, I think, injury-wise.
I agree, man. Yeah, so those are kind of the injuries, wrapping up Bears-Niners. It's going to be, in my opinion, this is a great game for the Bears. Caleb's been cooking since Thomas Brown took over as offensive coordinator. Now we're going to see how he is as the head coach. I think he's going to stay, doing offensive play call duties. But like we kind of will talk about in a few minutes, he's going to be on the field for this. Not in the press box like he was in the last few games. He'll be on the field. Obviously no head coaches or in the press box. So it's going to be, I'm really excited for this game, man. I'll be in Florida. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to catch it, but I'll be, looking on Twitter and stuff like that, seeing, kind of what's going on with the game and stuff like that. But I was rooting for a Bears win. Obviously they're out of playoff contention. I'm still rooting for the Bears to win against the bad teams. The Niners aren't that great this year. I was just talking to somebody. The Vikings are 10-2, man, or whatever.
That's wild. I know that's so wild.
They have not been playing. They have not been playing like they've been 10-2. We have that matchup coming up in a little bit. But yeah, so that's kind of wrapping up a Week 14 preview against the Niners. It's gonna be an exciting game. I'll take the Bears on that one, like I always do.
I definitely will as well. I'm sure you will catch the game, Tyler. So it will be an interesting move, and I'll definitely keep you updated on any of the the changes of the game that we do end up watching. But it's another 3:25 game, so it's gonna be nice having a little bit of a different stretch where you don't have to watch the Bears this early or late, like on a Sunday night game.
That's why.
So it's gonna be right in the middle. Perfect. Yep. One of my favorite times of the day is when I usually just lounge out and watch the game. So it's gonna be good. It's gonna be exciting. Let us know in the comments if you guys have any any excitement for the game this weekend, because if you got any predictions, score predictions, thoughts on who's going to pop off, thoughts off if you think we're incorrect, if you think San Francisco's kind of the team that's going to take the lead here, then let us know if we're wrong.
Levi is a tough place to play, man. They have great home, but I'm going to take those Bears on this week. But yeah, kind of steering away from that. Let's go quickly. Let's go into some new moves that the Bears did since the last time we kind of talked to you guys. Obviously, we talked last time. We kind of broke the news to you guys 3 hours after it happened. Matt Eberflus got fired as the Bears head coach. Thomas Brown's going to be taking over the head coaching duties, and now he's kind of in that mix now for who the Bears could potentially pick as a new head coach, who net coaching hire. And there's reports today that I saw on Twitter that many people like Thomas Brown at Halas Hall. They like inside at Halas Hall. They really want Thomas Brown to potentially be that head coach. But these next 5 games for him are going to be crucial. He needs to at least get, in my opinion, I know it's a big stretch, he needs to at least get 3 wins to potentially be in the top 5 running. Mm-hmm. If he doesn't get 3 wins, which it's going to be hard, Seattle's looking for the, to stick and stay in the playoffs and stuff like that. Every win matters to them. We've got playing against the Vikings. We got the Lions. We got Niners. Packers is the last game of the season. That's always going to be a tough game for the Bears. It's going to be interesting. And there's one name kind of, flown around right now that I've seen a lot more in the last 2 days about potential the Bears are looking into. And I know I sent it to you and you immediately disliked the message. Would be potential John Gruden, ex, Raiders head coach. He just signed a contract with Barstool. He's doing stuff with them now. He's commenting football games and stuff like that. But John Gruden is one of those guys. I know obviously he had some controversial things in the past, happened to him with, with the Raiders and everything like that. But this is a name that's been flown around on Twitter. Every time I open up Twitter, the first one of the first 5 posts is something about John Gruden with the Bears.
I know. I'm not a huge fan of the idea. I mean, I like John Gruden. I think he's a great stand-up. I think now he's kind of like an influencer, I guess is kind of the idea. But I think we have a lot of other interview options. And again, if I'm a Bears fan and Ben Johnson is available, I don't think I'm going to be taking John Gruden, the man who's been sitting on his couch for a few years now. It's the same kind of situation with Mike Vrabel. I think Mike Vrabel would be very enticing. There's been a lot of openings for head coach, and the other teams haven't really looked at him in his direction. So that gives me a little bit into the idea of just where are we? This isn't a risk that we're trying to take. This is, let's not screw this up, right? This is exactly. There is no risk. It's do we try our best to win more games, or are we just going to continue sucking? And the coach is the next part here. So I think we have to get that coach higher. Right?
So this is one of the most crucial things. Obviously, Ryan Poles came out and said this is going to be one of the most sought after positions in all of football. Seeing how Caleb has progressed and already putting up rookie numbers, that are amazing for Bears quarterback. But dude, in the last few days, I didn't even tell you about this. My idea on who the Bears could be head coach has changed dramatically. It really has. I was talking to David Haw yesterday when I was working at the Chicago Sports Network. He does stuff with 670 to Score. Mully and Haw, they have their show. He does stuff over there. And some of those guys over there aren't really sold on Ben Johnson at the moment. And the reason why is he looks like he's not a very vocal guy, just to say. He's kind of reminds you of how Eberflus is. He's a little bit quiet. Doesn't like to take accountability for not saying accountability, but he just isn't one of the guys that could potentially be, one of the loudest guys in the room, just to say the least. And my opinions have kind of changed. I'm kind of tied right now. Obviously, I said Ben Johnson over everybody, but Mike Vrabel and Ben Johnson are kind of tied for me at the moment. Mike Vrabel has proved that he can be a great head coach with the Titans, bringing them to the playoffs, having wild card spots with him. And that was with Ryan Tannehill's quarterback, guy who isn't currently a quarterback in the league right now. But he, my opinions have changed, man. I didn't even text you about this, but I just, it's kind of flowing. I still like Ben Johnson a lot. I'm not saying he's not going to be down on my list, but Mike Vrabel, a guy who has been a head coach for a long time, sometimes, like we said, with Matt Nagy, who is the Chiefs offensive coordinator, sometimes being an offensive coordinator and sliding into the head coach position doesn't always work out for the best. But
that's true.
obviously they said, is Caleb going to have a say on what if the Bears have a, Bears new head coach thing?
I think
he
so.
should. He should.
I
I don't know how much say. He's only a rookie, but he doesn't look like a rookie on the field, just to say the least. He looks like he has been in the league for a little bit. He looks like he knows what he's doing. He's changing play calls at the line and knows like what the defense is giving him and stuff. He's going to talk to Poles. And let me tell you, man, when I was watching that what's it called, the presser with Kevin Warren, Ryan Poles after they fired Eberflus, talking about that, Ryan Poles looked scared at the thing, man. David Haw told me yesterday he was at the thing and he's like, Poles looked like he's on the verge of being fired, and he did. He was like, obviously, firing your guy that you supported, that's got to look bad on you. Like he was like, he's our head coach. The Bears were the first team to come out after last season saying, we're sticking with our head coach. Didn't even see who was on the plate. They're like, Matt Eberflus, our head coach. Dude, this was in February. This was right after the Super Bowl. They're like, yep, we're sticking with Eberflus. Why would you not see what's out there first before you stick with a guy who, I know 7-10 is like a decent record, almost a wild card spot. Like we were that close to being a wild card team. But what are your opinions on this, man? Like obviously, I know you said like Ben Johnson's one of your number ones right now. But has anything changed in the last, like, I don't know, reading Twitter and stuff like that? Has anything changed in the last like 4 days for you? I'd say like,
honestly, not much. I do think Ben Johnson's still my number one because at the end of the day, like a coach's presence, Eberflus was good at that. He was a player's coach. The players liked Flus, right? Like Caleb Williams had nothing but good things, even Thomas Brown. My issue with Vrabel is that I just think the teams that he was coaching, I mean, he had Derrick Henry, right? You had the best running back of the decade.
That's right. Yeah.
So I do see, and even with that, right, having the best running back of the decade, he wasn't that prominent offensively. Like the team was definitely more prominent defensively. And that's what worries me is that we bring in another coach of that sense, and the Bears defense is excelling, but the offense still looks bad, and we don't have Derrick Henry. Ben Johnson, he might not have the vocal voice, but he works with Dan Campbell, so he can kind of give you an idea of what should be, right? He's playing, he's coaching part of a winning team, so he's going to understand that if he doesn't bring that vocal energy, that there has to be some changes on his end as well. But he's offensive genius, right? The Bears have lived way too long with having this defensive identity to the point where we have Caleb Williams and we don't have to be this defensive identity, right? We can have a bad defense but stay close in games, not the way that Cincinnati's doing it, but maybe more the way that the Chiefs are doing it, right? The Chiefs have a pretty mediocre defense, but they're still staying there in each and every game. So I think Ben Johnson's still my lead target, my lead guy, just because I think him working with Dan Campbell has given him some sort of authority, and he was looking at those jobs last season as well. It just gives him another year of prioritizing like the idea of becoming a head coach. Vrabel, I look at the same kind of dynamic as Belichick, right? Belichick is probably the best coach of all time when it comes to winning and playing with a good quarterback and playing with the same roster. But I don't see him being someone that is going to be prevalent for Caleb, right? Because Mike Vrabel, again, like he coached Tannehill, and we're talking about Tannehill not being great, right? We want Caleb to be the best player in the Bears.
Exactly.
So I think Ben Johnson is kind of the position that I'm looking most for. And even with that, like I think Thomas Brown is doing an excellent job. And Thomas Brown is someone they're looking for this so-called leader of men, which they looked for when they hired Eberflus as well. And that's my worry, is that it's going to turn down to be like a Mike Vrabel or I don't even know, like the Liam Cohen. Like it's going to be someone who's definitely more beneficial to being a coach rather than being an offensive-minded player. Like we need Caleb to be the best player he could be, and I think that's my biggest worry. My biggest worry with having a few of those candidates on there is that it seems a little bit more like a Bears move rather than let's focus on the offense here.
Exactly. Yeah. But obviously the head coach search is going to be a long, extensive process for the Bears. They're going to see everybody who's going to be open. I kind of already said already, if the Lions potentially win the Super Bowl this year, I'm not sure if Ben Johnson will leave. We've seen it with, Eric Bieniemy with the Chiefs. We saw it because he's like, I'm in a winning organization. Why don't I stay, keep winning Super Bowls? We'll just see what happens. The rest of the season, how it plays out, we'll definitely see who is going to be at the top of the Bears' radar. Because if the Lions end up going far, maybe make it to the Super Bowl and they lose, maybe Ben Johnson's like, I want another shot at this, and he wants to stay with the Lions. But maybe he's like, you know what? I want the head coaching money. I wanted to be with the head coach. Some people aren't greedy like that. Some people like to win rather than the money.
But and I totally understand from Ben Johnson's perspective. But here's a new offensive coordinator for the Bears. So it's all Thomas Brown now. Thomas Brown he kept Eric Washington as the defensive coordinator, and Chris Beatty, the new offensive coordinator for the Bears. He was the wide receiver coach and also the wide receiver coach back in for the Giants of last season. So he definitely has been around the league. He's definitely one of the more favorite wide receiver coaches. I mean, he's played for multiple teams. He's even coached for multiple teams. So we're talking more just a stand-in guy, right? We're not. He's definitely not any opportunity. There's an opportunity for him to go back to wide receiver coach at the end of the year. I don't see him being part of the roster if we get a new coach in town. But he's definitely a favorite of the organization. I see why Thomas Brown brought him up.
Yeah,
and like you said earlier, this is awesome. Thomas Brown thought about coaching from the press box, which I thought was really interesting. He debated it, which would be one of the first coaches in history to do that. He's not the only one, but definitely would be the first one to just get hired mid-year and stay in the press box. But he did say that he will be coaching from the field, which I think is a pretty good idea.
Yeah,
I'd say so.
You know, obviously a lot of people are like, "Oh, dude, Giants, like, eesh." But dude, look at the quarterback under center for him. He got cut from the team. So they gave him this contract, cut from the team. You know, some of the wide receivers on that team, you know, Darius Slayton last year. Obviously, you know, Malik Neighbors was with them last year. He's a rookie this season. But I'm excited to see what he can do. You know, the plays he's been drawing up and helping the wide receivers out. The Bears wide receivers have been one of the strongest suits for this team this year. You know,
these last few weeks especially. Yeah.
You know, DeAndre Swift took a little bit of a fall the last like 4 weeks. He hasn't really had a 100-yard game in about 4 weeks. But you know, the wide receivers have clearly been like one of what Thomas Brown has been saying, you know, we have these weapons, let's use it. So I think Chris Beatty is going to be like, all right, let's just roll with what we did before because we were very close the last 3 weeks to winning. So
exactly. Yeah,
I think, but yeah, so I think I'm excited. I'm excited to see what's going to happen. Thomas Brown. What I love about Thomas Brown right now is the head coach for the Bears. He went to the podium after the whole Poles and Kevin Warren presser, and he's like, I can't blame everything on Eberflus. I'm going to take accountability. You know, I was the offensive coordinator during some of those plays. I can take accountability. I should have spoke up during certain things, like calling the timeout or whatever. That's what I like about Thomas Brown, taking the accountability, basically saying, you know, I'm not perfect. Nobody's perfect. You know, we're coaches. We make mistakes, but at least he's, you know, owning to it instead of Eberflus being like, oh, what was the famous words he says? Oh, we're going to look into it. I should get a T-shirt print that says "We'll look into
whatever."
it." Whatever. You looked into it every week, man, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
It didn't work.
Yeah,
so
keep looking.
Yeah, keep on searching, bro.
I love the accountability and the energy that Thomas Brown brings. So he's definitely one of my he's on my list for coaches to look at next season. I think he's one of those new names, and I really appreciate people online being like, we can compare him to Mike Tomlin, and everyone's saying, how about he's just his own person? How about we enjoy him because he is his own identity? And he could be a great coach for us in the time being. These next 5 weeks, trial run. If he wins all 5 games, then I can promise you that he has a number 1 or 2 spot for the Bears coach next season. But if he loses a couple of these games, I'd like to see him somewhat back still in the Bears organization.
I would like that too, man.
I wouldn't hate him being the OC. I wouldn't hate him being back to wide receivers coach. I think he has a prominent, idea of how he wants to run a football team, and you want to center people around people like you want to center a team around people like that. He's a good identity. So we have a few more changes here, nothing too crazy, nothing too drastic, but trust me, when we get more information on coaches and what the odds look like each week, we'll definitely supply you with that. That's probably the most exciting thing we're going to have to
we are sending each other stuff every 5 to 10 minutes. Every time I see something, I send it to him. He sends stuff to me. We always comment on these things because but obviously, we're diehard Bears fans and we want to see what's going to, help this organization out and what people are saying. Obviously, the one I didn't send you was, talking about how, just before we get into like those moves was Jalen Johnson. Basically, there was reports that after that Thanksgiving game, he went at Matt Eberflus in the locker room. Obviously, nobody knows what happened in the locker room. It was reported on The Athletic. He basically was like, ripping into him, telling him like, this is not how we do things and stuff like that. And he's, Jalen Johnson, we're kind of talking about, NFC North and the Pro Bowl, like votes and stuff like that. The Packers have like 13, the Lions have like 12, the Vikings have like 10, and the Bears have 0. If there was one player that could potentially be in the count, it'd be Jalen Johnson. I like him voicing his opinion and stuff like that because he requested a trade from the Bears in the offseason. He was like, I don't want to be part of this organization right now. I want to be paid a little bit more money, but he ended up wanting to stay. He saw Caleb's, us getting Caleb, and he's like, all right, like this might be a winning organization for the future. But seeing how Jalen Johnson went to Eberflus, and then seeing how Jaquan Brisker was like, oh, I'll be back on the field. Clearly, a lot of players were not happy with him. So Thomas Brown at least takes accountability. He wants his team to win. He looks upset at the presser when when they lose and stuff like that. Eberflus was like, another game. And it's like, dude, it's another game that you lost. Like, you can't do that. So, but yeah, kind of, steering away from that, with like, the new coaches and stuff like that. Dan, you want to talk about a few of the former Bears players that, signed to they're not on the regular roster for these teams, but practice squad for them. And one of them is a fellow, he was on the team about 4 weeks ago or something like that.
Yeah, so a few changes when it comes to practice squad players. Obviously, the injury to Roschon's kind of changed a lot. The Eagles has signed Kari Blasingame from the Bears practice squad. He's been in and out this season. He was a full-timer last season. He got a few snaps, but I think he actually ended up scoring a touchdown in the preseason from what I remember. But in that replacement, the Bears signed a running back, Demetric Felton. I believe he played at Arizona last season. He was pretty good on the Arizona team. I forgot where we signed him from, but he's a new member to the practice squad. And obviously all these changes means that someone's going to need to get replaced or released. Offensive lineman Austin Pleasance was released from the practice squad yesterday morning. So those are the only changes that we have here. A couple players in and out just from the practice squad. I think these are for practice purposes. Don't think Demetric Felton is going to get any minutes in this upcoming game. We have a pretty deep bench when it comes to running back. And there's a lot of players on that roster. But we're going to talk about some thoughts on the Poles and Warren presser, but I think we kind of beat it down. I think we understand exactly where we're coming from. I think my view on the Poles situation is I didn't look at him as being scared for his job safety and stuff like that. I think I looked at him as just being more like pissed off. I think he was upset.
That's what it looked like to me too. And he looked a little nervous. He looked like pissed off and nervous at the same time. So
there's a lot of reports out there saying that he was the leader to fire Poles very early on in the season, right? Which in my mind is probably the right move to go, just because that would help us in the long run. And I think that's part of why he was upset. I think Kevin Warren was part of the person that says, no, we need to keep him in here. And I get a little upset by the way that they're talking about the McCaskies, right? Because the beginning and the end of every presser always goes, thank you to the McCaskey family. We appreciate you. None of this could have been done without you. And at the end of the day, like, what couldn't have been done? Like, build a winning team? Like, that to me is actually ridiculous to this point. So I'm done on the whole thinking McCaskey train. I'm now on the whole train of like, hey, listen, like, things are going to have to change, and they might have to start with you guys because we can't do our job. It seems like all these things are really lopsided. Like, I think the whole Eberflus situation was handled very poorly because Poles had an idea and identity on how he wants to handle these things. We saw him at Hard Knocks. We saw how he treats players that he's known for a couple weeks, right, when they get released on the offseason. So we couldn't even compare the relationship he probably had with Matt Eberflus, knowing that he probably had to let him go earlier in the season. That had to be up to someone else. It had to be up to Kevin. It had to be up to George. I think there's a little bit of an issue that we're going on still, right, from last season and the season before, to where management is kind of just the issue that we're facing here. But
it's got to be, man, because talking about it, it's there was reports, I think we talked about in the last podcast, there were reports after that New England game, which I was at, one of the worst Bears games I ever saw in my life, that Poles wanted to fire Eberflus after that game, losing 19-3 against a team that was 2-7 at the time, and then they got their third win. But knowing how the McCaskies are and how they are as they're the older owners, they don't want to look bad with the decisions they made. There's reported that they told Poles, said, you can't do that. You got to wait. Got to wait till at least Thanksgiving. And we could have had a new head coach 3 weeks prior to Thanksgiving, but ended up, waiting till Thanksgiving to get loose to the Lions because they didn't call the timeout. Oh yeah. And we'll just see what happens. Virginia McCaskey is 102 now. Obviously, I'm not going to guess when she'll pass away, but she'll be, it'll stay within the family. It'll become George McCaskey's team, and it'll be kind of maybe like how the Bulls are. People are going to be like, sell the team, Jerry, but Jerry's not selling any of the teams, and it's just we'll just see what happens. Obviously, McCaskey is going to have to realize that we need to be a winning organization, and we can't be, the meme right now is like when Poles went to the presser and said, we're going to, take first place in the North and never give it back. And now flipped, we're going to take last place in the North and never give it back. So it's just a little contradicting, but we'll see what happens with the Bears and stuff like that. Like I said, the next after the Super Bowl will really tell with the head coach and stuff like that, and kind of tell with how Poles is going to handle things. Kevin Warren and he said Poles is going to have the final say in the head coach. Kevin Warren is going to be helping out with the with the pick and stuff like that. It's going to be Kevin Warren basically doing the majority of the pick, the research and stuff, and then Poles is going to have the final say. So this is kind of, I think Poles kind of realize this might be his final straw as GM. You know what I mean? So
I don't know if I look at it that way. I think
all I'm saying is if he picks a head coach that just completely flops and gets fired in 1 year, potentially 2 years, Poles is not going to be the general manager of the Bears anymore. It's not going to happen. Obviously, we can go back to the things he did well, the DJ Moore trade. And looking at that right now, like that was obviously a very good trade. You got Tyree Stevenson out of it, Darnell Wright, future draft picks. DJ Moore signed a huge contract extension with the Bears, which was, an amazing pickup. But other than that, I was reading Twitter, like people were like, what other than that did Poles kind of do? Some of the draft picks he kind of flopped on. Velus Jones was a big flop. He could have got a 4th round pick for him or something like that and traded him before this season and said, no, I'm going to wait. Then we cut him for nothing. But I'm not putting like a lot of blame on Poles, but there's some blame to be put on. And
there's some blame.
I think he kind of realizes that like he can't screw this up. Him and Kevin Warren cannot screw this up because Chicago needs to win. Chicago needs to be a winning, franchise and stuff like that. And we're eager to, the NFC North's a tough division now, and this is a big decision for the Bears. It is.
It is indeed. And we'll talk about that once that time comes. But I do think Poles is in a pretty good position. I find it hard to screw up this coaching hire is kind of the way I look at it. And if he does end up screwing it up, then I would put the blame on him. But I do think at the end of the day, like there's holes that need to be filled. There's offensive line is still an issue. And depending on what we see on the field, at the end of the day, is going to dictate who can stay and who's going to leave.
And looking at the other teams that need head coaches, the Saints right now, not really super desirable. Derek Carr, like mediocre quarterback at the moment. He's doing okay. I'm not saying he's like bad, but mediocre quarterback. Trying to think of the other team that fired their head coach. I just can't think off the top of my head. There's one more team, but Bears are looking like that top team right now for a head coach to go to. So Ben Johnson, Mike Vrabel, we'll figure it out. But yeah, kind of steering away from that. And, obviously the Bears new moves with all the, practice squad people signing with different teams. Let's get into one of our favorite segments. I think it's your favorite segment, right?
Indeed.
It's one of my favorite segments too. And it's called Bear Down or Bear Frown, where we basically give you guys a few different prompts, saying that, if you guys have, stuck with us before, you guys know what we ask a question, we figure out if it's a bear down or a bear frown. Some of the weeks we've been doing really well. Other weeks, I think last week or something, I was like 0-4. Or that was the Patriots game. That was 0-4. That was a bad week, obviously. It was a bad week all around. But Dan, you want to start us off with the first one?
Yeah, we got a few different ones going on here with a few stats at the end, just kind of help you guys pick. I can go through the first two, and then you can get the actually, I have five here. Just a little extra one for fun. First one here is Caleb Williams throws more passing yards than Brock Purdy this game. Is that a bear down or a bear frown?
I don't know Brock Purdy's stats for the season. Obviously, I'm going to say bear down. Reason why I kind of talked about it earlier, his shoulder injury has been a little rough. Ever since Thomas Brown took over, this passing game has been doing a lot better. Keenan Allen's been a key target. Rome Odunze obviously as well. DJ Moore's been helping out. I'm gonna say bear down that Caleb does throw. I think Brock Purdy is still injured and he's looking like, I'm not saying I don't want to jinx myself, but he's looking like the pick he was at right now. But
yeah. I mean, I would say bear down. I think no Christian McCaffrey. That's already 50 yards less for
you're right. Yeah,
Purdy. I mean, he's probably the best receiver on that team when healthy. So I do think Caleb Williams outthrows him. I mean, 250 yards or more. It would be my guess here because I think Caleb's going to play out of his mind with Thomas Brown first head coaching. I think he wants to make him look good as well. So there's that one. I think that's a total good bear down. The next one here, receivers score 2+ touchdowns this game. So receivers, not including Cole Kmet.
I'm going to go bear down on this one. I think they have a tough passing, defense, the Niners do, but seeing how Thomas Brown has taken, like I just said, with the passing and game and stuff like that, Keenan Allen had 2 touchdowns last week. I think DJ Moore had another touchdown, if I recall correctly, against the Lions. But I'm going to say bear down this. I can see a Cole Kmet touchdown. maybe a Keenan Allen one as well. Not sure about DJ Moore or Rome, but I'm gonna say I say receivers get 2+ touchdowns.
Yeah, I would bear down on that too. I mean, the last 2 weeks we've had 2+ touchdowns, and so I would be excited to see that. I think this is a game that we're going to try to go win. It's not going to be like a high scoring game. I think it's going to be like a dirty, low scoring game. But yeah, I think Caleb Williams does overthrow more than Brock Purdy and throw more touchdowns, or at least 2+. All right, you want to take these next three here?
Yeah, I'll ask you this next one. So the Bears defense has been a little poor the last few weeks and stuff like that. They've been giving up some big plays, but do you guys think this Bears defense, and Dan, do you think that this Bears defense allows less than 17 points against the Niners? And the last 3 games for the Niners have scored less than 17 points the last 3.
I'm going to bear down on this. Oh my gosh, yeah. No Christian McCaffrey. Yes, I'm bearing down on this. They put up 10 points in the snow game, which even then the snow game, they looked pretty darn good on offense. Like they were throwing the ball really well in the first quarter. But yeah, I think I'm going bear down on this. I think they scored less than 17.
I'm going to take it as well, man. I'm going to go bear down on this. I just think Purdy doesn't know who to throw to right now. Obviously, George Kittle's like a main target for him. Jawan Jennings is kind of in the mix right now. Ricky Pearsall has not been involved. We'll see how Isaac Rendo is going to be as the running back under center for the Niners. We'll see. Obviously, they did sign 2 other running backs from different teams, one from the Jets, one from the I forgot the other team. They've signed 2 other running backs, but I'm going to say bear down on this. I think they're going to limit the Niners to 17 points. That's why I got that. So yeah,
that idea.
Let's go into this one. Caleb gets sacked 2 or more times against the San Francisco 49ers, and the San Francisco 49ers have 6 sacks in the last 3 games. So do you guys think that Caleb Williams is going to get sacked 2+ times in this game?
I'm going to go with bear down on this. I do think he gets sacked more than twice here. I think it's going to be a lot of the pocket presence. I think that's what Coach Shanahan's going to kind of try to coach his team up to, is just like, hey, maybe offensively we can't get a push, but defensively we're going to need that push. Yeah. And respectively, he coaches good defenses, right, against rookie QB. So I do think Caleb gets sacked 3 times here. I think it's just going to be just little pocket plays, and I do end up think we play a better football game than the 49ers this Sunday, but I do think he gets sacked, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to go bear down on this one too. He's kind of allowed 2+ sacks in a lot of the games this season. I'm going to go bear down. I think Caleb's going to get sacked twice. I don't think it's going to be 5 times. Hopefully not. But I'm going to say right around 2 to 3, like you said. The last one, this is going to be a fun one. And, obviously this is one of the big pickups for the Bears. Not pickups, but big draft picks for the Bears. Tory Taylor's been, I hate to say he's been unfortunately a stud because, he's having to punt the ball a lot. But he's been a great punter. Do you guys think that Tory Taylor is going to land a punt under the punt is going to land under the 10-yard line, like get it pinned under 10? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to go bear down on this. I think it's just a fun one, right? It's a fun one just to see if next week we can try to get 5 for 5 just for the random, shits and giggles. But yeah, for sure. Why not? I think he gets one.
Yeah, he's been doing really well. I'm going to go bear down this one too. San Francisco weather is usually not too rough. It's not too obviously cold. Well, I don't know how the weather is going to be looking like on Sunday, if it's going to be rainy or whatever. But Tory Taylor's been a stud for the Bears, and I'm going to go bear down on this.
Yeah, why not? It's fun and games.
Why not,
so
man?
There's a bear down, bear frown, guys. Thanks for joining us. That's one of our favorite things to go through, and we'll tell you how we do. It's going to be, hopefully we go 5 for 5 since we added
5 for 5, man.
That's kind of the goal here. But now is the exciting part. This is the part that we kind of been waiting for, and this is the part that you could either be excited to get into it or you think it's too early, but we think it's just the right time because there's a couple names we need to keep monitoring here as college football playoffs kind of start getting into the early function here. So let's talk, Tyler. Let's talk.
I was texting, Peter yesterday all about, the NFL draft, and he knows a lot about, college football and stuff like that. And he's been, me and him were going back and forth for a while talking about who the Bears could potentially pick up. So right now, where the Bears are saying, obviously you guys are like, oh my God, there's 5 games left. Why are you guys talking about the NFL draft? But Bears are obviously out of the playoff picture, kind of looking into the draft. I actually told David Hall yesterday, I'm like, dude, I'm already looking to the NFL draft. He's like, really? I'm like, what else is to look to? Obviously, I'm looking to week 18 when I go up to Green Bay to see the Bears play the Packers, but also I'm looking to see where the Bears potentially land. And currently right now, the Bears are staying at pick number 11 right now. Obviously, there's a whole lot of football to play, 5 games left. We'll see how many wins and how many losses they end up tallying, and that will either slide the Bears up or slide the Bears down in the draft. But currently, they're saying at pick number 11. And I went through a bunch of different mock drafts. I went through about 5 different mock drafts, seeing who, I'm trying to get more into college football. I don't know all of these, players right now. But right now, potentially at number 11 for the Bears, They are saying the Bears are going to go defense right now. And obviously, a lot of people are like, offensive line needs to be the focus. But if not, that good of an offensive line is still staying on the board, like Will Campbell. We were talking about that last time. Looks like the Bears are going to go defense on this. So, staying at number 11, players I've been seeing for the Bears. The first player I've been seeing is Jalen Walker, the cornerback from Michigan, who is a great talent. And I think, getting another cornerback to help out, especially depth piece and stuff like that, that could definitely help the Bears out.
Oh, yeah.
And then one more player, Malachi Starks. He's the safety for Georgia. These are players that are kind of been flowing around number 11 for the Bears. Now, kind of talking about that, Dan, number 11. What do you think about these two players? Obviously, cornerback, safety, defense.
Definitely going defense. I think if there's not a lot of offensive line help, the same with the last year's first 10 picks went for offensive line. I would love an edge. Cornerback for me, I'm still questioning. Safety, definitely. I don't think safety's, a priority, especially if Brisker is going to end up being healthy. Cornerback would be nice. I think my worry is that Tyreek is still playing at such a high level, and that Kyler Gordon is also playing at a very high level. I mean, I think the cornerback room is definitely safe. I would love to get some depth, but I would look at depth more in the later rounds. I think we have to go edge here. Edge, D-line, or even offensive lineman if there's someone that's available. I'm liking these names that you have here at the bottom. I like Texas A&M. Definitely breeds some good edge rushers, so that's the name that I'm looking at.
So a lot of these players that I broke up at the bottom, so these are players that potentially, if the Bears end up losing a few games, they are roughly projected to be around pick 9 or pick number 10. From what I've been seeing, the way their games go, if they lose the games that they're supposed to, win the games that they're supposed to, it looks like they'll be around pick 9 or 10. So slide down 2 spots from number 11. And I see Peter said right here, this is a great comment. He said, never too early look into the draft when you're an addict like me. I'm already looking at 2026 draft class. Love to hear it, man. Dude, you can always text me, what different players. I'm trying to get more into college football. Obviously, I didn't go to a college football school. I went to DePaul, so they never had a football team. I got really late into college football and stuff like that. I've been trying to learn more about it and stuff. And he says right here, this is what he texted me yesterday. Dan, I didn't tell you about this. So he says 2 words, Ashton Jeanty. The guy, he's the Boise State running back who is putting up ridiculous numbers right now. He's basically the Boise State team. That's the main reason why they're in the college football playoff right now. The rankings came out yesterday saying who's in, who's out, and Boise State is in. And Jeanty is a great talent, and he is obviously, looking at him, he's a 5'9" running back, but he is built. He's a guy who can run through a brick wall. He had like 4 touchdowns in one game this season. He puts up crazy stats. He is a great pick. But that's the thing I was talking to Peter about. He was saying, I'm like, dude, if the Bears pick up a running back at number 9 or number 10, do you know how much Bears fans would riot over that?
Yeah, I wouldn't be too happy with that.
They're going to be like, dude, we just got Swift last year. Obviously, Swift is not panning out to be a $13 million a year running back right now. He's having a little bit of ups and downs and stuff, but Jeanty could, it's a sneaky pickup. He could be, I'm not saying, Barkley was number 2 when he got drafted, but he could be another sneaky pick in the draft that the Bears could go with. But kind of going, we'll talk about Jeanty in a few minutes, but if the Bears do pick number 9 or number 10, these are the names that I've been seeing like flowing around. I've been seeing Will Johnson, cornerback from Michigan. I've been seeing, you just talked about this a few seconds ago, Dan, Nick Scaronton. He's an edge for Texas A&M. And Abdul Carter, edge for Penn State. He's been playing really well this season. Obviously, you've been saying focus on edge, but it's looking like if the Bears want to get a really good edge spot, which, that's a gap they've been needing to fill, it might have to come at pick 9 or number 10. If we sit at number 11 where we're saying at now, I feel like those 2 edge rushers might be taken out, but it could be like last year's draft, man. Nobody expected the Falcons to pick Michael Penix Jr. at number 7. Everyone was like, oh my God, they're going to pick Rome. And as soon as I saw that, they were like, oh my God, we're getting Rome. But so obviously you kind of said, man, edge rusher is a key, piece. I think it's a key piece as well. If Will Campbell can slip to number 8, number 9, which he probably won't, it was kind of like with the guy who got drafted, Joe Alt. That's who got drafted last year for the Chargers. He didn't slip. Everyone's like, oh, he might slip to 8 if the Chargers trade the pick. They never traded it. Will Campbell's probably going to go number 5 or number 6. And I think edge rusher for the Bears would be a great, maybe, safety pick. But here's what Peter said in the chat. He said, Lions fans were mad when they drafted Gibbs, but look at them now. It's a good comment, man. It's a good
point. It's definitely a good point. Yeah, I mean the one thing I always look at when it comes to draft time is the school, right? The school I think is the most important thing for me at the end of the day because that's what breeds the type of players that they're coming out of there. Penn State, just dogs on defense, right? We already have Jaquan Brisker, and we see how his attention to detail and his attention to being with the fans and understanding like the culture and all that. That's very important to me. Texas A&M also just breeds killers, dude. Like those players, they're still, everyone who's been drafted is most likely still in the league playing at some sort of position. So that's something that I love to see. I mean, the Ashton Jeanty thing is definitely an interesting thing to look into. I think my main argument here is always going to be the idea of just like what are running backs worth, right? Because we can draft Ashton Jeanty, but I don't know how much more reliable he's going to be than Roschon Johnson, right? I mean, Roschon Johnson is not playing a lot of snaps to begin with, but
he was the backup to Bijan. We got to say that. He was not Bijan. He was the backup to Bijan. We kind of knew picking him up. I was happy when the Bears got Roschon, but I was like, he's the backup. So he's a great, he's a powerhouse. He can get 2 yards bulldozing, through the offensive lineman, the defensive lineman and stuff. But I do like the idea of Ashton Jeanty. I just know how Bears fans would be being like, you guys just signed a running back last season. Why are you picking up a running back in the draft? But if he can pan out being, not saying Saquon, Saquon was number 2, but if he can pan out being like a Saquon type of, running back, which he is a stud, could be a great pickup for the Bears, man. Who knows? Could be. Knows? We got Swift on a 3-year deal, so he has 2 more years left. What if they do the double horse like, the Lions do with Gibbs and Montgomery? I could see that happen. But,
I look at it as an issue that doesn't need to be fixed kind of thing. Yeah, that's kind of the way I look at it. I mean, you look at defense, like you're telling me a defensive line isn't a bigger priority than it is for running back. I mean, yeah, they got Gibbs, but the Lions also have Hutchinson, right? Like they also spent another first overall pick on a star defensive lineman. And I like Gibbs. I like Gibbs a lot, but even Gibbs is Gibbs the priority over Dave Montgomery? Dave Montgomery got the new deal. I do like the way the lines are built, and I think Ben Johnson would have a lot of say in that position because he's the one that's writing up plays for all of them. But I look at it more as the Bears have some spots that need to be filled, and I don't know. I mean, we talked the same thing about Bijan, right? When Bijan was available, and the Bears were just like, you could trade up 2 spots and get the best running back in this draft. And even though he was the best running back on that draft, and he's playing out of his mind right now. The Falcons haven't changed that much, right? The Falcons have Algier,
That's
which
right.
the 1-2 punch of Algier and Bijan is actually really good in this league. But there's not much going on. I mean, quarterback play, right? They have the wide receivers.
Cousins is not panned out.
Cousins definitely sucks, and he's.
It looks like it's becoming a great pick for the Falcons to pick up Michael Penix Jr. in the draft right now, and it's cool. It's good for them that he's sitting right here. But Peter did say in the chat another name to look for: Tennessee running back, Dylan Sampson, super shifty, super elusive. Yeah, we have an out for Swift's contract after next year. That's good to know. I forgot about that. I forgot he has an opt-out after 2 years. But yeah, let's that's another running back pick. But
we'll see. I don't know. I don't see any problems with Swift's game right now.
Yeah,
I don't. I mean, he's not running 100 yards a game, and that could change the way that the game's played. It can change the way that we're playing. But I think that he's a great pass catching running back. He had weeks like 4 through 10, he was, top 5 in running backs and yards and touchdowns and catches. Like he is definitely the premier guy. And I see why drafting someone would be good. But again, like Roschon is there on the bench. I mean, Roschon can do anything a rookie running back can do right as they get into the league. Only difference is Roschon has played those minutes. He's played those games. He's gotten those rushing touchdowns. So I wouldn't be against drafting a running back. I just think, again, like when you look at other teams and the teams that have drafted a running back in the first round, there's not a whole change that's happened, especially this last 3 or 4 seasons. They're teams that are still sitting there. I mean, Travis Etienne, like I'm looking at a bunch of players that haven't panned out exactly to where they want to go. And
you're right.
As much as I love Ashton Jeanty, I think I'd feel more comfortable with him being another team's problem, just because at the end of the day, I mean, Boise State's a good connect school. They have definitely bred a lot of good players, but he's not. It's not Texas, right? It's not. Exactly. It's not Texas. It's not Tennessee. It's not another one of those schools that has had running backs. He could win the Heisman. I'd be very excited for him to win the Heisman. But I just think where the Bears are at right now, DeAndre Swift is doing just a good enough role for what we need him for. If you wanted a good running back, we should have re-signed
And the cool thing about this year with college football and stuff like that is the expanded playoffs. We saw yesterday all the teams that are planning on playing different people. Boise State's in it. We'll get to see Ashton Jeanty in a bowl game, which was going to be super cool.
That's exciting, yeah.
It would be. And you, like you just told me, you're going to be going to the Lucas Oil to go see the Big Ten championship. You'll get to see Abdul Carter in person. You also get to see an amazing Oregon team, which Dan Lanning has done amazing with that. But right now, my sole focus right now is offensive line. If Will Campbell can slip to us, if not, I'm going to go defense. I'm going to go with an edge rusher or a defensive lineman, and then running back at third. And like you said, man, I do like what you said about how some running backs have not panned out like you did, like ETN or other different. I can't think off the top of my head, but other different running backs. And then Peter did say in the chat right here, this is a good thing. Swift is terrible after the contract, or terrible after contact. I don't see him as a true workhorse back. There's a reason why he didn't work on the Eagles and the Lions. It's true, but he did split the. He did.
I know why he didn't work out on the Eagles and the Lions, because they got other running backs.
They got other running backs.
Paid more money for other running backs.
Exactly.
I don't know. I mean, I do see the yards after contact being an issue, but I also am thinking back to his last play he had where he ran it for like a 40-yard touchdown.
Yeah,
and that to me that was one of the longest plays of the year, and Caleb Williams hasn't even thrown touchdowns that long. Mm-hmm. I totally understand the idea of the running back, like by committee type of situation. I know that's what Carolina's goal is going to be for next season as well, and they're going to try to see how that plays out. But I think there's, again, if we're talking running back versus defensive lineman, then part of me just thinks, the defense looks bad, right? So no matter what, if we draft a defensive lineman, it's going to make us look better against the team that drafts Ashton Jeanty, because Bears defense is looking pretty bad when it comes to the rush defense. But
exactly,
I totally understand the running back comparison, though. I do see that in some teams it's played out, it's gone well, and I don't know. The Lions, I think, Lions and Eagles are a really bad comparison, because at the end of the day, they're teams that have the best defensive lines, the best offensive lines, great wide receivers, and the only missing piece was the running back. I mean, Saquon, you're telling me if Saquon isn't a upgrade over DeAndre Swift, and that's insane, right? MVP season. And then David Montgomery, like, again, if the Bears needed a running back that is going to be the best running back evolved, then I would say David Montgomery was that guy. And I think DeAndre Swift's doing a pretty okay job. I mean, I think DeAndre Swift on the first down runs is pretty bad. It's always like a yard or two. But those two teams are the top of the division for a reason. I think it's a lot more things than just the running backs.
Yeah, I agree, man. So, in the next few weeks, we'll kind of, talk a little bit about that. What we'll see when the Bears like slide up and down. I'll keep my eye on different names, but we just want to do like an early preview of the draft for you guys. See where the Bears can potentially pick up, and obviously after the season, we'll know a little bit more where the Bears can sit with that. But it's going to be really exciting for the Bears, with saying potentially anywhere between 9 to 11. So right now, saying at 11.
Yeah. I definitely see us staying at the same place we were the year before, right? Darnell Wright, kind of number 9 pick, number 10 pick. But going on to the Bears schedule, right? Because even though we're talking about mock drafts, there's just a few weeks left. We do get San Francisco this week, which should be a pretty fun game. I think that could be an easy win for the Bears regarding the injuries of the San Francisco 49ers. I think Minnesota after that, week 15, that's also an away game. That's going to be a Monday night football game. So get your calendars ready and get your free time on Monday night, right? Because Monday.
Hopefully I ain't working that day, because I want to watch a Monday night Bears game.
I would love a Monday night Bears game, right? Then after that, we get a home game in Detroit. That's a 12 p.m. Central game. That's going to be a good game as well, just because having Detroit back in town is Ben Johnson's kind of last opportunity to see where the Bears are at with head coach Thomas Brown. And then we get week 17 versus Seattle at home as well. That is a Thursday night football game. That is a last Bears home game. I think that's another one of those games that I'm kind of looking at as that could be a win. Geno Smith has been playing well, but they've been scoring next to nothing. They've been scoring less than 20 points these last multiple weeks. So I mean, they almost lost the game to the Jets, but they gave up 19 unanswered. So I think that's something that the Bears can definitely work on. Week 18, Tyler's game. This is the game that Tyler's going to be at his own self. I'm so excited
for this.
In Green Bay. I think the time is still to be decided. Haven't looked that one up.
And the time is to be determined. Just because it's a flex game, it depends on playoff picture with the teams. If they need if it's a team that needs a win to get in the playoffs, it'll be a prime time game. If not, it'll just be a regular time game at noon or like 3:25 or whatever. But Kind of just backing up real quick to that Seattle game. Seattle needs every win they can to get in the playoffs. That's going to be a tough game for the Bears. They're looking to win, and they have good weapons. But like you said, man, they've not been scoring that well. But that Green Bay game is going to be I hate, even the Bears are not in the playoff picture. It's going to be an important game for the Bears. We need to get a win against Green Bay, man. We do.
I can see it happening. I can see it happening. Away game. What we got last year?
Yeah, just to wrap you guys up real quick with everything, we're going to do just some quick Bears fun facts, and we'll sign off for the day, and we'll let you guys get on with the rest of your day and the rest of your weekend. But yeah, so some Bears fun facts for you. Starting us off. So first fun fact we got for you guys, the Bears will play their season finale against the Packers for the second straight year. Believe it or not, it's not the first time that ever happened. Despite every other season, despite playing every other season since 1921. And then 1982 is the last time it happened with the players' strike. So that's going to be cool.
It was read a little bit incorrectly there. Sorry, buddy. I think I wrote it a little crazy.
Go for it.
It was the Bears are playing week 18 against the Packers 2 years in a row for the first time in history. Even though we played the Packers every single year of every single season since 1921, except for 1982, because that was the players' strike, so no one played that year. But it's just a crazy little thing for the schedule this season that these last 2 years we just so happened to play Packers the last game of the year for the first time in history.
You're right.
That's pretty interesting stuff. What else we got here, Tyler? Let's keep it fun.
Let's do it. Second one for you guys. Bears went from 31st in 2023 to 10th in 2024 for their rush defense. So that getting better. The rush defense has looked bad the last few weeks, but at least it's better than last season. That's all I got to say.
It looks a lot better. And last year also, we can't forget that we had the number one rushing offense last season, and that was with, a couple key pieces. I know some of the same roster pieces that we have at the moment, right? Khalil Herbert. So that's just another idea into the identity of a player like Khalil Herbert, Roschon Johnson. Those players can lead the league in rushing yards per game as long as the O-line's sticking with it, and the passing game's looking pretty good too. Yeah. So that's just another adjustment that the Bears can make regarding the way the draft goes and who we kind of can process with. The last one here is one of my favorite ones here because it's another former Bear. DJ Moore has passed Greg Olsen this week in all-time Bears receiving to move from spot 41 to 38. He passed a couple guys, but Greg Olsen was that one person he ended up passing.
That's cool. Yeah,
that's pretty cool. I mean, he is number 38 all time. So, I mean, and it's just so funny that after a season or two, he could move all the way up from 31 to top 10 easily.
Easy. And he's got a 3-year contract with us, right?
3-year, I believe.
3, 4, something like that.
Maybe 5. I mean,
5, 9, 15,
15.
35.
Stay with us, DJ. Stay with us, DJ. Don't leave. We love you. We love you, DJ.
Yeah.
Thanks for being on there, Bears.
Of course. I know you're listening right now, so appreciate it.
Yeah. And thank you to Peter. Thank you to Peter for always clicking in these last 2 weeks. Really appreciate your comments and everything in here because we love having conversation, just kind of going back and forth on what we think. And hey, listen, I'm not always right. Things that I say can always be incorrect. So I love hearing other people and what they have to say about the agenda and what we feel as Bears fans.
Exactly.
So thank you to Peter.
Appreciate it, Peter. Thanks, man. But that obviously this podcast went a little longer than expected. But when we start talking about the Bears and stuff, talking about the draft, talking about the upcoming games, can go a little bit longer than expected. But we're always happy to sit down as long as we can with you guys. Talking about upcoming schedule, everything with the Bears. Obviously every time I say this, it's always an exciting time for the Bears. Even though we're at a losing season right now, they're not going to make the playoffs. Always look to next season. That's always you can do. I know some people are like, oh yeah, Bears have been bad for a little bit. I'm tired of being a Bears fan. Are you a true Bears fan though? If you're tired of being a Bears fan, obviously
I'm never tired. Always energized.
Of course, always. But Dan, I appreciate everything, man. That was awesome. Previewing, Niners, Dan did all the notes today, which I was super happy about because I was working all day yesterday. But you guys can thank Dan for that. We'll be back next week with you guys. We'll try to figure out the day, maybe Wednesday or Thursday, maybe Friday. We'll try to figure it out. I'll be gone in Florida till next Tuesday. But we're gonna recap the Bears Niners game. We'll preview that Minnesota game. Again in Minnesota again. It's in Minnesota, right? Yeah.
That's in Minnesota.
Yep. In Minnesota, yeah. We'll preview that game for you guys. We'll see what happens with the draft, talk about, head coaching and stuff like that. But we'll get all the information to you guys as soon as possible with that. But like we said, we appreciate all the watchers and listeners. You guys can always comment. Make sure you guys subscribe too. We'll come back every week talking about the Bears. As soon as Bears season wraps up, that's when we'll kind of, get into potentially getting into the Bulls. Maybe kind of the Hawks are a little shaky right now. We'll might talk about them a little bit, but that'll be, Bull season for you guys. They've been doing they've been winning some good games. Obviously, Dan, like you said, you went to the game 2 days ago, and they did beat the Nets. So.
Yeah, I went to the Bulls game. Yeah, Matas Buzel's got his career high, 20 points, which was a good watch. So I'm really excited to see the way that the young stud's playing. Yeah, a lot of changes happening in Chicago here. I mean, unfortunately, each team is continuing with a losing record, but hey, good things to come. Good things.
Welcome to Chicago, man. That's what I say.
Chicago. We've lived with it. If you're just joining us now, then get ready. You got a few more years. Until we see some promise here. But thank you guys for everything. Thank you for listening in, and we'll see you guys next week. We're going to do a more strict schedule. We might come back to a little bit more of a nighttime. We'll try it. We'll see what we can. We're going to aim for next Wednesday, but we'll keep everyone updated, and obviously you'll see our faces next week, no matter what.
Yeah, we appreciate it, guys. Hope you guys enjoy your Wednesday. Enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy that Bears-Niners game at 3:25 in San Francisco. And as always, bear down.
Bear down, guys. See ya.
Thanks, everybody. See, I clicked stop this time. There you go.
There you go. See, I was so confused about what happened last time.
I clicked leave on accident.